Hello, everybody, to the second part of this series where we create a mobile friendly navigation bar in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we also designed it in Figma. As you can see here, this is the design we're going to be working on today. So in the previous episode, we worked on this. It's responsive, as you can see. It's has a desktop view and a mobile view. So in this episode, we're gonna take this design and change it into valid code, HTML, CSS. And in the next one, we're gonna go back to Figma, and then we're gonna work on the design for the mobile navigation. As you can see, because you don't have space, we have converted that into a menu. Now in the next one, we're going to design the actual navigation part. Then after that, we're gonna go back to code and implement that in HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript. We might even consider working with some animations to make it a bit more interactive. So let's start. First, I'm gonna create my folder. I'm gonna go to the eDisk. I'm gonna cd into code, and I'm gonna make a directory. I'm gonna call it navigation bar, and then I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna go into that navigation bar folder, and I'm gonna just type code and period. If you don't know what this is, it's just to open Visual Studio Code. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, I would say it's the best tool for web development right now. You can use whatever you want. You can use Atom, you can use Sublime Text, you can even use Notepad. But if you want to seriously get into web development, I really think this is the best tool for you. Okay, next we're going to be importing some stuff like images from the Figma document. Let's just close it. So what do we need to import? What are the images or the assets that we need to import? First, this is an SVG, and we'll export it as an SVG. I'm gonna call it logo. Then let's just go to the eDisk. Let's go to code. Then I'm gonna go to navigation bar. Then I'm gonna the file name is logo, and I'm gonna save it. So now we have the logo, as you can see. I'm not gonna create a folder structure for it because I think this is such an easy example. We won't be needing anything complicated, so just to keep it easy. Then what other thing do we need is we don't actually need any. Yeah, here we need the navigation toggle, so I'm gonna rename it mobile menu. So I'm gonna export this as an SVG too. And the reason we are doing SVG is because it's more scalable, and actually I'm not gonna export it as an SVG because I would like to work with this a bit. I would like to change its color, for example. So I'm actually gonna put it here for now, and I'm gonna come back to it. So let's come here, let's delete. Okay, so yeah, let's delete this. Now let's actually create the HTML. So I'm gonna just make index.html, then just exclamation part, then enter to get the default HTML syntax. Yeah. One thing actually will not gonna be needed. So if you're using VS Code, what I've just done is called Emmet. It's just a way to make your life easier when programming, especially HTML and CSS. So that's one reason to use VS Code. You can get into, I think, in other programming in text editors, but I think VS Code has the best one. So we have the default HTML structure. Let's just change the title into navigation bar. Then we can save it and just right click and open the live. If you don't have this option, it means you don't have the live server extension enabled. So just go to extensions and type live server, and you should get this extension. As you can see, I've already downloaded it. Just download it and you will have this option here. Then we can just click it, and what we've just done is it will open now in Chrome window, as you can see here. So it's a live preview of what we're building. So let's start. So what do we need first? Before we even start, this is a navigation, and most of the time I like to make my HTML semantic, meaning instead of using classes for everything, you do more descriptive. You make it more descriptive with your tags. That makes it easier for the SEO or search engine optimization of your website. So the best tag for navigations is called the header tag. Just type header and click. Now you have a header tag. Okay, what next? So we have the header tag. Think of it as the entire layout. Then we go back, and inside of it we have one structure to wrap over or to contain all the content inside of that. So the most commonly used syntax or the most commonly used tag for that is actually a div, and it's called a wrapper. Now the name doesn't even matter, but it's the convention. So I'm just going to call it wrapper. It means it wraps over all the items in the navigation. You see the logo, the nav links, and also the get started button. So next we have the logo, so let's just enter that logo here. So img, click enter, and it should give you default syntax. I'm going to period, then slash, then just select logo.svg. Then we could give it an alt, but I'm not going to do that because it's really not important for us, because this is just a simple example. Then what do we have next? Okay, after the logo we would have the navigation. So the items of navigation, meaning the home, about, services, pricing, and contact. Let's just make that, and I'm gonna make it into a UL, then li. So here is our syntax for it: UL, li, and also we want them to be links, right? So they're not going to go anywhere, so we might as well do this. Anyway, though, now because we made it a list because it's a group of closely related items, you know. So let's call the first one home. Actually, you can, if you're in VS Code, one shortcut is Shift Alt then down, the down arrow, and it will duplicate this. So let me just finish setting up all of them. There's home, there's about, there's contact. Actually, let's do this to services, pricing, and contact. So I think this is enough. Yeah, about service, pricing, contact. Okay, then we have the button here. And this is actually very simple. You can just say button, click enter. We have a button and just say get started. Nothing complicated here. You can make it a link if you want. Let's do that. We could say actually a better way to do it will be selecting the thing you want to wrap and just Control Shift P. If you this only works in Visual Studio Code actually. So just say image, click the first one that says image wrap with abbreviation. I think it only works with VS Code, I'm not sure. So we're gonna wrap this with an A tag. Now it wraps everything that we've selected in a tag which we specified, which is the A href tag. So this won't be going anywhere too. Yeah, let's save it. And actually one thing is left, and that is we need this menu. Although it is not visible in a desktop view, it's still there. It is still there in the code. We just make it so that it's not displayed. So if you remember, I didn't import it to the code, and the reason I did that is because we want to change some properties of the menu, and we'll see what I mean there. But for now, just can right click here. You can say copy or paste as. You can come here. You can come here and say copy as SVG. If you click it, and if you go to Visual Studio Code, just come down and paste it. This is an SVG syntax. Now, I don't understand fully what all of this means, and neither should you have it. It's really complicated to do on your own, and you're probably not gonna be working with this much. One thing you can do is you can delete this part here. Let's save it, and now we can see what we have in the browser. Yeah, perfect. It's everything we want. We have the logo here, and one thing I forgot actually. We're gonna go back to that. We have the logo, we have the nav links, we have the get started button, and also here the menu button. So a couple of things. So let's just copy, select that and wrap with the abbreviation A, because we want the user to be able to click on the nav item and go back to the home, right? And one more thing is you want to be able to select this and wrap it with a button. Why a button, you might ask? And that's simply save it and look at it here. It's because we want to interact with it. We want to click it and we want some action to happen. Now we're gonna style this now, because this, while it is functional to some extent, it's not looking quite nice, right? So we want to be able to edit this, and we'll start working on it right now in the CSS. So for this, I'm not going to be using anything really, like I'm not going to be using a preprocessor like Sass. I'm just going to be using vanilla CSS, just because this is a simple example. I'm going to call it style.css, and I'm going to go to the HTML, and just before the title tag, I'm going to link to the style.css tag file. So here we have the style.css. So one thing in web development is, and when you're working in the front end, you want to, most of the time, you want to be working from a mobile first perspective. You want to do everything that is simple, and then you want to add complexity to it. I know it might sound weird, but that's actually a better practice. So let's just pull this side by side, and you can click this, or you can just say Control B to hide the bar there. So now we're not going to be working the HTML, rather we'll be working this CSS. So Before we start, let's make some resets. The first reset that you have to do always is this. Let me type that out and I'm gonna explain it. So this might seem complicated, and when you save it you might not see changes, but this is a very crucial property in CSS. First, the selector means everything in the page, every before pseudo class, every after element, everything. Then you want to give it this property, box size and border rules. What this means, it's a bit complicated, but think of it like it. If you click inspect here, and if we go down, we have a box model. So for example, if we click here on the button, we have a box model here. So what this is there's the content, there's a padding, there's a border, and there's margin. So if this property is not applied, when we give this value, we give this a width, what will happen is that this the width will be set to this part here, the content. But when we are setting the width, we want to take into consideration the border too, for example. So it's just an overview, and it's just to take into consideration all parts of an element, including padding, border, not so margin, but you get the idea. So now let's continue. The first thing I want to do is actually say body, and I want to give it a margin of 0, and let's do a padding of 0 for no reason. It's just good to be careful. And if we save it, you'll see that this white space right here, this empty space, will be removed. Perfect. But we don't want to apply this border and padding property to only the body, but many other different elements. For example, we want to apply to the UL, we want to apply to any H1 tags, but we're not using that, so we're not gonna do that in this video. Maybe in the future I'm gonna explain why we do this in a bit more detail. But if we save it now, you can see everything, because the always lists in order to display the dots. What they do is they put a padding on their list items, so that it pushes it a bit inside in order for them to display the dots. So we're not going to be using the dots, so that doesn't even matter, but we are going to work on the UL a bit more. So these are not actual general stylings, these are just resets. I like to do them always when I start a new CSS file. And one thing you can do is we can say list style none, meaning it will take the dots out of the system here. So it will remove the dots. So another thing we want to reset is we want to select the A tag, and you can see here we have a bit underlines, right? So we want to remove that. We want to come to A and say text decoration, okay, and we want to say no. Save it, no underlines. Perfect. Nice. Now what we want to do is we want to edit the body a bit more. So let's edit the font family. Now if you remember, here in Figma, the font we used is called Poppins, and this Poppins font is not available in your PC. Most probably it is not. So what we can do is we you can import, sorry, what else I said? You can import the font from Google's font API. Let's just, we can search for fonts.google.com, that's the link. And if you go to that site, you'll see this, which is a website where you can get links of many different fonts in order so that you can use them in your website. So we want to search for Poppins, and Poppins is one of the most popular fonts for both design and development. Okay, here it is. Now we don't want to select everything, we just want a regular 400 and a bold 700. Then you can come here, click the copy button, come here, and just before the styles, come one up and paste them. Okay, this format is a bit better. Now let's save it, and this is working because we're going to test that. So let's close this, we don't need this. Now we have them in our file, but we want to give every single item in every single text in the website, we want to give it the Poppins font. So we say Poppins, and the reason we were using double quotes here, you can even use single quotes, is that because we want to tell the CSS file that the font we're using is not from us, it's not from the computer, instead it's an external font, maybe a font we've downloaded, or maybe a font we're importing from a link like here. Now if we save it, as you can see, it changes the font here. Now sometimes internet may be slow, or maybe it's many different reasons actually. So we want to give a fallback, and we can do that by saying comma and space. Then space not necessary, by the way. You can give it a fallback sans serif. Now if we save it, nothing different, but if you see it changed for a while, because while the font is not loading, it will use the callback, and sans serif is a font which is available in every computer. So it's pre-installed, at least with Windows, I'm sure it is. So we'll be using that. Okay, what next? Next we want to start working actually. So let's choose our header, because that's what we called it. And what do you want in our header? We want the header to be, if you remember, if we select this, you see here, right, there's a bit of space, and we want to give that space using the header, not space actually, the border. So we can say border bottom, because we want to give it only on the bottom side. We want to say 1 pixel solid, and we want to give it color of black, that's 00000. Yeah, okay. So if we save it, you can see here border. So one thing we can do is we need to give it space, vertical space. The horizontal space, we're actually gonna do that using the wrapper. I'm showing why here. So padding, we can say, actually not padding, block. Block means top and bottom, right? So we can say 1.5 units. 1.5 units is 25 pixels. So if you save, there's a bit of space right there. We can even reduce it if I think it's not small enough. Okay, that's good enough. So we have vertical space. Now let's actually work on the wrapper before we do anything. So I'm gonna come up here, and the reason I am using the wrapper up is it's because wrapper we can use it as a utility class. What a utility class is essentially something you can reuse. You can use once. You can use a utility class many times in your code, and it will have the same styling, right? So you can come to the wrapper and say with. I'm just gonna type it out, and I'm gonna explain. Say min 25m and 100% minus 1m times 2. Let's save it, and we can say margin inline. Also, now it's working, it's good. So what did we just do? First, we are setting the width. We're setting the width of to choose between two properties. Here we have 75m, which is I believe we can actually say 1200 pixels instead of 75m, and will be similar. 1200 pixels, and between 100% minus 1m times 2. What this we are doing this because we want padding, right? We want the both from both spaces 1m and 1m. In the smallest mobile side, we want a 1m or 16 pixel difference from the right and left side. And in CSS you need to use calc, right? But when you use this main property, you don't have to use calc. That's why we're not using the calc method. So we are making the item, the file, the CSS, we are making it so that it chooses between 1200 pixels and this property which we have decided for it. So see what happens. You start here. Here, the minimum is 100%, 100 minus 2m essentially. So because 100% is lower than because this is not 100 1200 pixels. Here it's not 100, it's lower. So 100% goes still 100%. Then we get to a point where 1200 pixel it becomes the lower than 100%, because 100% of the width becomes too big, and when that happens, it starts to be 100 to 1200 pixels, and it gets limited. But if we just do that, it will stay on the left side, and it will have an empty space on the right side right here. So if we give it a margin inline means left and right. It means we want to give a margin inline of auto means we want to give space equally here and here. If I were to show you, if I come here to the header and to the wrapper, there's an equal space in of the margin, as you can see, the yellow part. That's what it's doing. Okay, so let's just return and work on it. Okay, what we can do next is we can select the header, the wrapper. So this will apply for only wrappers which are inside the header. So we can say display flex first of all, and if we do that, everything will be in one column, in one row, and it will be side by side. So we can just say justify content space between. If you save, it will everything will have a space between them that is the maximum amount that they are able to have. And also you can say align items, you can say center. If we save here, the items will not have to take the whole vertical space. They can just be centered to each other. Actually, I think this is everything we need for the wrapper. We might return to it. So next we have the a tag. So okay, I'm actually gonna give it a class. Okay, here we have the logo, right? So we're gonna say class logo I'm not using BEM or anything complicated, so we can refer to that, and it's actually good. It's actually good enough for what we have, because we exported it as we wanted it. But here there's a width of 71 pixels and 454. We want to do that here too. We want to give it width, because we are not sure, maybe something breaks and the width and the height of the element change, right? So what we want to do is we want to width 71 pixels and height of 54 pixels, and nothing will change, but it will be more secure for the future. Next, the UL, let's work on that. We can say UL, and I'm not going to give it a class because this is the only UL we have. So first I'm going to say display flex, because I want, one thing I forgot is I need to wrap this in a nav. So the reason I did this is because the nav bar is semantic, and we want to use it in order to we want to use the nav bar because we want to optimize it for SEO and many and to make our code a bit nicer too. So it will not make any difference. So if we say UL display flex and save it, as you can see, it will have a space between it. It will be in one row, and we need to give it space in between. So we can just come here and say gap, and that's a good property that Flex offers. And gap, let's see, we can give it a 2.8 m gap. Maybe that's a bit too much. 2.5. Yeah, that seems right. So in a mobile navigation, we'll not have that. But when the screen becomes larger, see, this is what we want. Then what, let's edit it before we can hide it for the mobile navigation, because we are doing mobile first CSS. Let's say the UL A, meaning every A tag inside the UL that should have a color of black. And the reason we're using A and not li is because A have a layer bigger maximum level of specificity, and we cannot overwrite that by using other elements. So if you are trying to change a color for a link and it doesn't work, it's because it's probably you're not using A tag. So let's just save it, and here it's black, as we want. One thing we want to do though is we want to go to li, and you would most of the time you would use JavaScript to do this, but we're not going to be focusing on that. We're going to make the home, we're going to give it a class of current page. Okay, just copy this class, and you can now edit it. You can give it some special stylings, the special styling being this. So okay, so first let's say background color D9. I'm not sure, remember the background color. Okay, it's E1. So if we save it, yeah, it's perfect. And then we want to give a border radius to give it some curves. So 3 pixels, I believe it was. Yeah, 5 pixels maybe. No, 3 pixels. Yeah. Then we want to give it a padding of 2 pixels and 5 pixels. maybe a bit bigger. Let's go 6 pixels here and 4 pixels here. Yeah, that's good. So we're doing this to indicate or to give the user the ability to know what is the current page they're on. So the home page, we are assuming we're on the home page, and this is the special indicator. Okay, now let's continue. What we can do next is we can work on the. Okay, so we've already given them colors, but we haven't given them size, right? I'm gonna say font size, and it was 14 pixels. Now we can use 14 pixels, but it's not 14 pixels is not something we want to give for fonts, because fonts are usually changeable. That means if somebody goes to their DevTools, the settings, and if they change the font sizes from medium to large, the fonts should be able to be converted in the same manner as the user chooses, right? So we're not going to use 14 pixels. Instead, we're going to use a relatively better value, which is M. And to convert pixels to M, we can divide them by 16. That is 0.0875. So we can say 0.875 M. And this should give them the same as 14 pixels. But if a user goes and change their sizes, it should be able to scale properly. That's all. By the way, you can use points without the zero here. It's the same thing in CSS. You can if we save it as zero, it's the same. Without zero, it's the same. Then we can now hide them. Okay, so let's just come up here, just below the logo, and you can say choose the nav, and you say display none. Then if we save them, they will disappear, because we don't want them to appear in small sizes. We just want them to appear in large sizes. At the moment, it's not appearing in both sizes, and we're gonna fix that. But now let's work on the mobile navigation. So let's work on the button actually. Perhaps btn primary. Okay. Let's give that class. And now first color of height, that's FFF, that's white. So this will be for the A, if you remember, right? The A has higher specificity. Then you can say btn primary. Now we can start editing it. So first I'm going to take the border out, border, none. Now let's see in the code, in the design, let's come here, okay. So first 8 pixels border radius, and this is the color. Let's copy this. Let's say background color. Let's give it the value, and let's say padding, no, actually border radius, it was 8 pixels if I remember correctly, and let's give it a padding. So in the design, give it a padding of 10 and 24, right? So 10 would be 0.625 m in the vertical direction, and in the horizontal direction it was, I think, 24, right? 1.5 m. Was it 24? I'm not sure. 24, yeah. Okay. Now you might see that the font is not appearing to be correct here. That's because buttons and many input types, they don't use the default font for the browser. Instead, for the CSS, instead they use their own font. But we can override that by saying button, and we can say font and inherit. And if we let me take this up just to be more organized, and if I save it, you can see changes, becomes Poppins. And also let's come here to the and give it a font size of 16 pixels. 16 pixels, if you remember, is just 1 M. Perfect. So we have our button. Nice. But we also don't want to display this button. We can say display none, and that will make it disappear. So we are left with our default mobile navigation here. We have the logo, and we have this nav menu. So let's work on the menu. Okay, let's come here, the button, class, nav, menu. Actually, we can say just menu. Let's select it, jump down menu, and let's work on it. First, no background. So background, no. And the border also no. The padding, because borders buttons have default padding, say 0. Now we can go to the SVG, right? It's a menu SVG. And as we did with the image, we want to give it some default, some explicit sizes, right? So it's 26 and 16. So we can say width 26 pixels and height 16 pixels. It will not make any changes, but now it's explicit and it's better like that. So now one thing we want to do is we want to come here and we want to say pointer, cursor, actually, not pointer, cursor, pointer. And if we go and hover over it, you can see it's a pointer. So the cursor property might be new to you. It's just a cursor. See, it's the cursor. And a pointer is many different values that the cursor could have. This is a text selector, for example. This is just pointing. This is the pointer, actually. This is the default one. So let's continue. What we can do next, actually, this is the mobile navigation. It's complete. So if you made it this far, you should have perfect looking mobile navigation. So now we should work on our desktop navigation. So what should happen is when we scale up, at some point the desktop items should appear. So we can do that by using a media query. You can say add media, and sorry, you can say screen min width 50 M. Now from 50 M upwards, these properties will be true. The first thing is we from 50 M upwards, 50 M, I'm not sure, 50 M, how much is that? 50 times 16, that's 800. We can say it's the same, actually. We can say 800 pixels. From 800 pixels upward, these properties will be true. The first property will be to take the menu and we want to display none, because we don't want a menu in a mobile in a desktop navigation, so it's disappear. The second property is we want the navigation to display block, and also we want the button, right? So we can say dot btn primary to display block. Then if we save, perfect, we have everything done. This is a perfect navigation from desktop, and when you go down, when we get to a certain point, it will disappear. So This is as lower as it gets, but after now it's a perfect mobile navigation. So this is a complete responsive mobile navigation. Thanks for watching. If you are enjoying the series so far, I would appreciate it if you subscribe. Anyway though, the next video we're gonna work on designing the mobile navigation menu. The menu, when we click on it, we want to see a navigation that corresponds to this, right? So we're gonna work on that, on the design part. Then we're gonna work on JavaScript, and we will be done with this. So until next time, goodbye.